covering the stories that impact your life, your town, your state, and your future. This is the Means Report with your host, Brad Means.
Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to the Means Report. We certainly appreciate you spending part of your day with us, where today we have a busy agenda to tackle. We're going to begin this edition of the Means Report by talking about Augusta traffic and how it is handled. If you ever get frustrated while you're in a congested part of town, fear not. There are people behind the scenes that work to alleviate that congestion, to make everything on your commute run smoothly. Our second segment focuses on our veterans and fireworks. As you know, whether it's the 4th of July or anywhere, it seems like there are always fireworks going off in Augusta. I hear them in the distance all the time, but that's not great for some of our veterans. It can trigger post-traumatic stress disorder. We're going to talk to folks from the VA, including a counselor, about how to cope. And then we'll wrap up this edition of the Means Report with ways that you can stay in touch. We love to hear from you. And we love to get great guests, like our first one, Augusta traffic engineer John Usry. If you've watched Channel 6 for any length of time, you have seen this man on our 6 o'clock news. George Escala, I know, is constantly at your doorstep, and you have great insight and information. Welcome to the Means Report.
Well, thank you. I was glad to be here. Thank you.
Glad to have you here, John. I wanted to ask you, just to give people a feel for what you do, is most of your job to manage the traffic that we have in Augusta, or is it to look to the future and make sure we can handle what's coming traffic-wise?
So we do a little bit of both. Our main day-to-day job is to handle all of the traffic on the public roads around Augusta and Richmond County. So anything traffic related, like the signals, the traffic signs you would see, like stop signs, yield signs, those types of things, and all the stripes you see on the road, those are all our responsibility. So we're responsible for all of that. And then street lighting's in there too, because at night you want to be able to see where you're going. So we want to keep everyone safe. So that sort of encompasses everything we do. And then we also plan for the future, and we're always trying to integrate new things and new technologies into what we do and try to keep up with the latest improvements.
What takes the most time if you could pick something? Is it troubleshooting? Is it, hey, there's a light down on Peach Orchard Road, go fix it quickly? Is that the day-to-day time consumer? So
probably the thing that takes most of our time is just maintaining all of the traffic signals we have in Richmond County. There are over 285 traffic signals in our county, and everyone needs to be maintained and monitored and repaired occasionally and kept up to date.
Do we need state approval for everything, John? I've often wondered when I'm driving down roads and I see projects starting that Georgia, the state of Georgia, the DOT had to sign off on this. Is that true, or do we have local control when it comes to our roads?
So it depends on the type of road. So there's really 3 classifications of roads in any county, really. But here in particular, there's the interstate system, and those roads are owned by the federal government. So the interstate itself and all the ramps that lead to the interstate, the federal government owns all of those, and they're managed by the state. And then we have all the state routes. So most of our main streets in this county are state routes. So Washington Road, River Watch, Peach Orchard, Dean's Bridge, I could just go on and on.
Right.
But all of those major roads that have multiple lanes, most of those are state routes. And then we have our local street, or off-system street is what they call them at the state level. And so we are in complete control of those. So anything we do on those, other than the rules and regulations I'm required to follow by state law, we have pretty much control of those. And then when we want to do something on a state route, let's just use Washington Road, for example, we have to work with GDOT, Georgia DOT, and we got to get permits and plans and go through that whole process to do anything on a state route.
Well, when you say that, what I hear is, hey, be patient, because there's some red tape that you all have to navigate. In other words, if I drive over the same pothole on Washington Road every day and wonder why it's not instantaneously repaired, it's because of those procedures you have to follow, right?
Yeah, in most cases. So there's certain items we maintain on the state routes. Just the simple way to think of it is we're in a unique position here in Augusta. Is if you were in Metro Atlanta, Georgia DOT would maintain all that stuff.
Yeah.
But because we're sort of, we're Augusta and we're sort of off to the east of the state and in our own little spot over here, they're more lenient with us than they normally would be if you were in a more metropolitan area. And so we maintain all of the traffic signals for them. So we time them, we maintain them, we upgrade them. But things like potholes and signs, if it's on a state route, that's their responsibility to fix.
You know, you mentioned the federal government a moment ago. I see TIA signs all over town, Transportation Investment Act projects. That thing's been around for more than a decade. Are we still getting money from that? And if so, what can we look forward to in the future as far as TIA projects in Augusta?
So we're on our second TIA. So the first one was approved, I think, in 2012. And with that project, we did with that TIA funding, we did a lot of projects. We resurfaced and widened a lot of roads, rebuilt a lot of bridges. And from the traffic side of it, we were able to install our first traffic management center. We call it the TMC, and we have that downtown. And we were able to install a fiber network and cameras all over the county that we use to monitor traffic. So that's what happened in the first TIA. So the second TIA was just approved by the voters 2 years ago. And so we got another group of projects that we're going to use or going to do for that funding. So for traffic in particular, we got another several $1 million, and we're hoping to expand the system that we built several years ago. Right now, if you look at a map of Augusta, we have the Bobby Jones Interstate, sort of the loop that we have.
Yeah.
Everything that's inside of that is connected via a fiber optic network. And so we want to expand that outside of the Bobby Jones bypass freeway. And we want to mainly get it into South Augusta. So we're talking areas like Windsor Spring Road and Tobacco Road and Peach Orchard Road. So we want to push our network farther into that part of Augusta because it's also a large population center. So we want to serve those people.
Can y'all see everything we're doing out there?
Mostly.
Really?
Yeah, we have, like I mentioned, we have 285 traffic signals. Every one of them has a camera on it. Well, most of them have a camera on it, except if it's an isolated signal somewhere. So we have traffic cameras all over. We don't, I think this is a misconception we get quite a bit. We don't record the video, and that's because I'm not a law enforcement agency. So it's not my job to write a ticket or figure out whose fault it was in an accident. But what we use the cameras for is we monitor the flow of traffic. And so we can tell right away or pretty quickly if something is backing up in a place it shouldn't be. We know something's wrong. Either the signal is malfunctioning, there's an accident, there's some other event going on. And so we try to adjust to that fairly quickly, especially, again, if you're inside that Bobby Jones area, right, inside in the middle of Augusta. We can adjust signal timing and try to get people around the obstruction, so they don't have to wait too long.
You made me think of Masters Week, Monday of Masters Week, just a couple of months ago. We were on our way to Augusta National via Broad Street and the Calhoun Expressway and onto Washington Road. And the traffic was challenging on day one, John. There was a lot of it. And I know that's to be expected. It's not a diminishing what you do. Tuesday, day two, there was no traffic, same time of day.
Right. And
we just breezed on into the press parking lot and began our duties for the day. Did you do that?
Well, every day for the Masters in particular is different. The events start earlier and earlier. So we have the last day of the Women's Amateur Tournament, which is a Saturday. And that traffic is different than Sunday, which is different than Monday and Tuesday, et cetera. So it just depends on how people come in because during the practice round days, most of those people only can come in for a day. And they're typically, more often than not, first-time visitors, or they haven't been there very often. And so those patrons behave differently in traffic than the patron that has the tournament ticket later in the week, because they're usually more seasoned, they've been there, they know where to go, they know when to get there, all that stuff. So yeah, traffic is a little bit different every day. What we do is with all the cameras and infrastructure we have, we monitor all the major routes that come into Augusta National, and then we'll emphasize certain routes depending on the volume of traffic and how long the queue is. And we try to keep everybody moving. That's our goal.
What a great, insightful answer. I just love everything you just said. So when you say we try to, move everybody around or make adjustments, is that making a light stay green longer, or advising an officer to keep waving people through longer?
So yeah, luckily during the Masters in particular, there are deputies in almost every busy intersection, and so we're in constant communication with them. So we'll adjust the signal timing, and their main function is to make sure people don't back up through the intersection. So when a light turns red and somebody's just really impatient, they try to shoot through the intersection, or they may stack up through the intersection, and that becomes a safety issue. So we work in tandem. They do an excellent job. I can't say enough about our Richmond County Sheriff's deputies that work that event and just in general.
They do.
And they do an awesome job. So yeah, we work in tandem, and our main goal is to make sure you don't sit in a queue longer than, 15, 20 minutes. And we're mostly successful at that.
All right, 2 more minutes. I'm so frustrated that our time is flying by. Let me ask you you mentioned the cameras throughout the interview. I know you're not law enforcement, but is there a chance one day where we could see cameras catch these red light runners, which you can't be at an intersection without watching somebody run a red light in Augusta? And can we make those cameras catch them and ticket them?
So the state of Georgia does allow that. They have a whole set of rules for red light cameras. The commission has asked me that question, and I'd be happy to explore it for them. I moved here from out of state, and the place I moved from has red light cameras, so I'm very familiar with how they work.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more to it than I think most people realize. You have to have a dedicated deputy that looks at the footage and makes sure that you check all the boxes to make sure you can actually issue a citation. There's a lot of maintenance involved and things like that, but it is definitely something we could do.
All right, 2 more questions real quick. First of all, when are you going to fix Wrightsboro Road? It's horrible.
The Wrightsboro Road project is actually slated for later this year.
Yeah.
And so we're going to improve the roadway. We're going to add new lighting. We're going to retime the signals, all that stuff.
Okay, thank you in advance.
Yeah.
It's so needed. You called stop signs and speed humps the 2 most misunderstood pieces of equipment out there. Why don't people get what it takes to get a stop sign or a speed hump?
So I'll start with the stop sign. That's the easy one. According to all the rules that we're required to follow at both the federal and state level, stop signs are not speed control devices. So almost every time I get a call, somebody wants me to put in a stop sign because they want to slow people down. And I understand the logic behind what their thinking is, but it's something I cannot do, or I should not be doing. And so a stop sign is basically to help control traffic at an intersection that's too busy for people just to yield, but it's not busy enough for a traffic signal. So it's sort of the intermediate step. So that's why a stop sign should be installed. So if you call me and you really want it just because people are speeding through your neighborhood, I can't help you with that. And that leads me to the second one, and that's the speed humps. So a speed bump is something you would see in a parking lot. It's short and it's high, and it forces you to go over at about 5 miles an hour. That's a speed bump.
Right, like in the Lowe's parking lot off Bobby Jones. So horrible.
Exactly. That's a speed bump. Now, a speed hump is a little different in that they're not as high and they're much longer. And the reason for that is we want you to drive over those 15 to 20 miles an hour, which is kind of what you should be doing in a residential neighborhood anyway.
Yeah.
And so we purposely put a different type of speed hump in on residential streets, and it's also for emergency services. I mean, if you call an ambulance or a fire truck, you want them to get there. You don't want them to have to slow down to 5 miles an hour, and those really large, heavy vehicles have a hard time navigating speed bumps. And so one thing that I want everybody to know is if you think that people are speeding through your neighborhood, please give us a call. Please let us know or talk to your commissioner. We have a running list. We constantly are doing speed surveys, and if you meet a certain threshold, then we will move forward with the process. So that's how it works.
All right. I'm going to ask you now, please come back to the Means Report so we can talk about
sure.
other things.
It'd be my pleasure.
Thank you. We'll do roundabouts. We'll talk about other things. But John, this is just, I've learned a ton from you, and I thank you for your time.
Well, you're welcome, and it's good to be here.
Absolutely. When we come back, we're going to talk veterans and PTSD and how we can help them on the Means Report.